Good evening. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to Prophecy Roundtable. Tonight we are in Revelation 16. Ooh, it's getting exciting. This is the grand culmination of the book. And as we've been talking about going through this book, we're going to keep looking back, and we're going to look back even further in scripture, because the book of Revelation is not this brand new thing. It's really kind of a nice executive outline. It's putting all the different pieces of the Bible together. And we can think about Isaiah chapter 2, Isaiah chapter 13, Isaiah 24, 25, 26, whole bunches of chapters in there. You got Isaiah 63, 64, just to name a couple in the book of Isaiah. And then you have Ezekiel 38, 39, plus others, Zechariah 12, 13, 14. There's a lot. And Revelation brings it all together in this epic showdown of the end times. And so as we get into chapter 16, we're going to be looking at some of those other texts. Of course, we want to hear from you guys. Make sure to put your comments in the chat, and we'll do our best to look those over and get to them. So, all right. Well, Scott, what do you think? Should we just dive right into the text?
Sure. Yeah,
All right.
like you said, I would throw Exodus into that mix and other Isaiah chapters
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Absolutely.
Zechariah 12 through 14. Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we get started, again, that's a common Orthodox Jews accuse John, who received the revelation, and accuse this book in the New Testament as being a theft. They realize just how many passages allude back to the Hebrew Scriptures, and so they even accuse Christianity of stealing this. And by no means did the Christian religion steal this. I think if Rome could have rewritten some things, it would have.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if they're that concerned that it is plagiarizing on biblical text, that's just proof that what John is saying is not at all brand new. The packaging is a little different, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the core message, the big ideas have already been presented many times throughout scripture. And that's what makes it valid, in my opinion, is that this isn't a brand new thing, but this is one more take at the end of this age and how it's all going to basically play out. And even so, we still have lots of debates, don't we?
No doubt. Especially within Christian prophecy circles, because they actually ignore a lot of this, especially the prophecies about the house of Israel. They ignore where both Judah and Israel ignored, are having issues with the Torah and the testimony. And we see that. We see where Christianity, from Hosea, the law, the commandments have become a strange things. The house of Israel, they would eat abominations. They would not designate between the holy and the profane. And so, and we see, to the Torah and to the testimony, and we see John, being told this verse twice, basically quoting, I believe, quoting Isaiah 8, where the testimony of Yeshua, the testimony of Jesus, and those who keep the commandments. Mm-hmm. Again, he's not making up new things. He's referring back, I believe, to Isaiah 8, a snippet quote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Well, here we go. Then I heard a loud voice from the temple telling the seven angels, "Go and pour out on earth the seven bowls of the wrath of God." So the first angel went and poured out his bowl on the earth, and harmful and painful sores came upon the people who bore the mark of the beast and worshipped the image. All right, well, there's already a lot to say about that. All right, so
before we get started there,
the biggie.
Before we get started there, I think we're in alignment. We both, our current understandings is this will be post-resurrection, post-Yom Teruah and gathering, when these bowls take place, and that are, please disagree if you're wrong or chime in, but I believe this happens during this 10-day period, potentially 15-day period or 22-day period after Yom Teruah.
Mm-hmm.
and before Yom Kippurim, but you wouldn't. I wouldn't get my feelings hurt if you push back that some of these judgments are even happening, because we get the grapes of wrath, and that happened to their tabernacles, and we get the
Yeah.
language of the wedding feast, and you also have the language of you don't want to be a grape. Okay,
Right. Right.
nobody wants to be a grape during that time period and be pressed in that manner. So am I
Well,
wrong in
yeah,
saying that we pretty much align on this?
probably. I mean, I've looked at this first one here, and I've paired it up with Revelation chapter 9, where it talks about those that are getting stung, and they're looking for death, and death escapes them. So when I put it into my framework, as I'm talking about corrupting the image and people, taking this mark of the beast, it's very clearly that they take the mark of the beast. As I understand it, this is a genetic transformation. They have made the ultimate deal with death. They have tried to get the ultimate upgrade so that they too can become gods, but they're taking on Satan's DNA. They're taking on his essence, if you will. I think it's kind of similar to what would have happened to Adam and Eve had they taken of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then had they been permitted to eat from the tree of life. In other words, they would have been sealed. They would have become eternally
Eternally separated.
eternally separated, eternally damned, eternally corrupted, right? And that's why it was mercy that God did not let them eat from the tree of life, because they would have been perpetually in that corrupted state. And I think that is what is happening here to the people that take the mark of the beast. So it may happen a little sooner, as far as I can tell, but I'm not dogmatic on that either. So
Well, and again, to your point, I don't see that all these bowls necessarily have to be poured out post resurrection.
mhm.
There's
They could be
those
progressive,
individuals, just
yeah,
like with the trumpet judgment, those that have not taken the mark, those that have the seal. Now, it's different. This one is very specific to those that have taken the mark.
yeah,
The trumpet judgment only says, I mean, it is more expansive in that all who do not have the seal. So there
hmm,
could be some who have not taken the mark but don't
yeah,
have the seal of Yah. They
yeah,
get affected by those demon bugs that come up out of the abyss and
yeah,
tormented for 5 months. And there's no mention of them having taken the mark. It's just they're not
yeah.
sealed for protection.
Yeah, I guess what stands out to me is that they're looking for death and it escapes them. I kind of think of Simon and Garfunkel. There must be 50 ways to leave your lover. There must be 50 ways to do yourself in. And
Something's happened.
I mean, if you really are looking to find death, it seems like you'd be able to find a way. But according to that text, death is not that easy to find. In fact, death is escaping them. So I get the impression that somehow they've been transformed. They
Mhm.
have become mortal, thinking it was probably a good thing, and it turns out it's not quite all that it cracked up to be. That's the impression I get.
Yeah, like they
And
almost have to remain alive until such time that Yah deems, hey, now I'm snuffing you out.
maybe, I
Uh,
mean,
yeah,
we're
we'll keep reading about that, the snuffing
we're
part.
all trying to put it together, right? I mean, that's the tricky thing. But this these painful sores that come upon people's bodies. I mean, this is radical stuff. Um, I wrote about this in Corrupting the Image 3, where I talk about there are people that are taking some really cheap street created version of meth, which is a bad idea. And then they have what's the fancy title for it? But it's where their flesh, necrotitis, I think it's called, their sarx necrotitis or something like that, and their flesh just starts to fall off their bones. I mean, they're alive and you can see the bone, like it's just open sore, And so I get that impression that this is where it is not at all what they were expecting, and it's definitely bad news. So, yeah.
Let's see. I was trying to add Exodus. Yeah, I did. I added it. So yeah, and again, linking it back, you see these boils breaking out, these sores on man, and so
Hmm.
you're not seeing anything new under the sun. Although I believe it's going to be worldwide as opposed to just Egypt, and again, hopefully for all those in covenant, there will be in some type of Goshen. And that's
Yes.
easy stuff for Yah. In other words, even if we're still in our mortal bodies, this particular bowl judgment is not going to touch anybody that has not taken the mark and is worshiping the image of the beast. This is nothing to be concerned about for
Right.
those that are in covenant. Should not
Right.
be the least bit worrisome, except for loved ones, that at that time if they have done that. And again, not dogmatic on this, but I believe time is short. I believe the plane is beginning, its final approach for landing. So
Hmm.
we do need to be warning people. So, and even if it's another 1,000 years, we need to ask people to repent. I think that's what this
Yeah.
book is about. Is about
Yeah.
repentance.
Thank you, CDB. Necrotizing fasciitis.
Fasciitis.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fasciitis is, I think that's how you say it. So, yeah, it's, your skin is just falling off. It's not a good thing. Yeah, the dry bones of Ezekiel comes to mind in this context. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe. There's a lot of crazy stuff right here. Oh man, but
Yeah, except
this
the
is
dry
like don't.
bones, the bones are coming to life, and the flesh is being. It's like the reverse effect.
It's
The
the
flesh is
reverse.
being
Yeah,
added. The body. I
yeah,
believe this is
yeah,
sort of like the very end. When
yeah.
it's like that the dry bones is. I believe we're seeing that sinews and muscles and everything as far as people are starting to understand that there is real. You know,
Right,
to even understand that prophecy, Doug, I think you have to have the blinders off and understand this house of Joseph, and that it's been Christianity. Christianity just hasn't realized it now for over 1,900 years.
yeah. I mean, they're getting there. And by the way, I just this book is coming out in Spanish February
Mm.
3rd. So El Divorcio de Dios. So check that out on Amazon. It is coming. And if you haven't read it in English, check it out as well. Got the audiobook as well. But, it is exciting that little by little, the church is beginning to see this bigger picture. They're like, oh, this makes so much sense, and yeah, it's too bad that people are even going to take the mark, but they will. And, the mark of the beast is something horrific. Let's be clear, because the SDA, the Seventh day Adventists, they have suggested that it's anybody who worships on Sunday. That's completely false. It's not at all in the ballpark. I mean, I think Sabbath is the day, and it's Saturday. Okay, I think that's the day that God would have us honor, especially for that. But it doesn't mean that if you happen to worship God on Sunday, that somehow you've done the mark of the beast, right? So the mark of the beast is something that's going to happen at the end of the age. It's something very specific. You have to take it. You got to receive this number, and then you have to worship the beast and the image of the beast, whatever that's going to be. Okay.
And for the SDA, for E.G. White's prophecy to come true, there would actually have to be like a universal global law stating that this is the day of worship. You must worship this image of the beast, and to honor the Sabbath would be punishable by death. I mean,
Right.
for it to even be in the realm of possibility. I mean, I
Right.
know they've been teaching that and they dogmatically teach it. I mean, I love listening to Walter Veith on certain things, but when they start talking prophecy like that, I sort of tune out. Or I mean, they had to invent this thing called the investigative judgment just to get around the fact that they were incorrect, that Yeshua did not return after
Yeah.
2,300 years, way back in 1843 or
Right.
1844. I think they initially said 43, Doug. They're like, oh, we miscalculated, just like the 88 reasons why you're getting raptured in 1988. Like, oh, we'll shift that back to 44. And then when that didn't happen, they got busy and go, all right, how can we say this prophecy was fulfilled? Oh, we'll come up with an investigative judgment. The books are open. Like, no.
That was a pretty good way to cover their butts, though, I have to say.
Well, it's just
And people bought it, right? I mean,
well, they
it's
still
always
adhere.
amazing.
They still adhere to it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's amazing. But I will say this: I have read some of her stuff. I mean, she mainly was just teaching on repentance, and returning to the truth. And part of that was the Sabbath. I mean, I just don't I don't think she was a prophet. I think there's been a lot of evidence that she plagiarized a lot of things and said that it was a download from God. And yet, you know, there's other writings that back in the day, and they've tried to make an argument. Well, there wasn't a copyright violation. Yeah, but if you're claiming a prophecy and your prophecy lines up with what some person wrote and you changed a few words, you read it. Not saying that wasn't a true statement, but it's not necessarily hearing from Yah that He
Hmm.
wants you to then communicate that. So that's where I get a little
Yeah.
weirded out when it comes to EG. So
Yeah. I'm just going to go back to the mark of the beast thing, because this is Matthew 25. And a lot of times, this is a beautiful passage, and it's talking about when Jesus, he says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory with all his angels with him, he'll sit on his throne of glory. Before him will be gathered the nations. He'll separate them as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, right? And so we know the sheep, they're like, well, when did we see you sick and thirsty? When you did to the least of these, right? So that's a beautiful thing that we should all live by. I'm all for that. But what I want to point out here is that when he's talking to the goats, they're going to say, well, when did we see you doing this, Lord? When you didn't do it to the least of these, my brothers. And then he says, and to those on his left, depart from me, you curse, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. So if this is talking about the return of Christ, what just happened just before the return of Christ? People were taking the mark of the beast. And we saw in Revelation 14, I will take us there right now, because this is really important. This is where, because people have conflated so many different texts. Oops, I don't know how I got there, but we've conflated so many different texts instead of understanding that the mark of the beast is a very specific thing, and it gets a very specific judgment, right? So here this angel says, if everyone worships the beast and its image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he will also drink the wine of God's wrath, poured out full strength into the cup of his anger, and he'll be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night. These worshipers of the beast and its image, whoever receives the mark of its name. So this whole thing about hell, it's not a very easy or fun topic to talk about, but we have to, because it's in Scripture. It gets misused, and it gets applied to the nicest atheist you can possibly imagine, right? This is one of these doctrines that it sounds like if you don't say the prayer, you're going to spend all eternity burning. And that's not what Scripture says. Some people definitely are going in that direction, but specifically, it's talking about those who take the mark of the beast. And if you take the mark of the beast, there's no do-over, there's no mercy, there's no getting around this. So it's not about Sunday worship. It's not if you eat pork. It's not any of these, rather small offenses. This is something where it's a complete change of allegiance. It's a complete radical change of identity, change of makeup, change of intrinsically who you are. The image of God is gone. And I think that is why there is no more opportunity. Paul, or whoever wrote the book of Hebrews, probably wasn't Paul, but it's another topic. But he says that mercy is given to the sons of Adam, the sons of Abraham, but not to the devil and his angels. So there's something completely changed. And I would suggest that is why someone who takes the mark of the beast has undergone a radical genetic core level transformation in who they are. And that is the reason that there is no longer any possibility of mercy, because they're fundamentally different. So, all right, let's continue on. We will get back to
just real quick, Ezekiel 34. You talk about
Yeah.
the sheep and the goats. I mean, again, Yeshua is not making up anything new either. He is the Word, made flesh. And Ezekiel 34:7, he will judge between the sheep and the sheep, between the rams and the goats. So this is, again, just another link in how everything is interconnected.
Right. Exactly. Right. So it says, the second angel poured out his bowl into the sea, and it became like the blood of a corpse, and every living thing died that was in the sea. All right. Wow. Okay. This is a big deal. And this is when I hear people say, oh, we're in the tribulation, or these are all just these are allegorical kinds of things. I don't know. It's not very allegorical, and we're definitely not in this time. We haven't gotten to a third of things being turned to blood. And this, of course, takes us back to the whole thing of the Exodus, where you have the Nile River that was turned to blood. But what happened on a limited scale in Egypt is going to happen globally. First, a third, right? First, a third of the fish are going to die. First, a third of the ships are going to die, or whatever, be destroyed. Yeah, and then we're going to have everything. And this pairs completely well with Isaiah chapter 2. That is when the day of the Lord comes about. So in Isaiah chapter 2, he talks about the coming day of the Lord, and he says, every man is humbled, everyone is brought low into the rock. You hide in the dust, and before the terror of the Lord and before the splendor of his majesty. The haughty looks of man shall be brought low, the lofty pride of man shall be humbled, and the Lord alone will be exalted in that day. For the Lord of hosts has a day against all that is proud and lofty, against all that is lifted up and shall be brought low. So the cedars of Lebanon coming down, the oaks of Bashan coming down, the lofty mountains, every high tower, all the ships of Tarshish, etc., and all the idols are going to completely pass away. So we know that during the greater tribulation period, for those 42 months when it's the beast and it's now his show, he is blaspheming God and those in heaven for 42 months. So that cannot be the day of the Lord. It just can't, because it says, when the day of the Lord happens, all haughty men are going to be brought low, and the Lord alone will be exalted in that day. So this really helps us. When maybe you're talking with a pre-trib rapture person, like, well, I just don't think God would pour out his wrath on his bride. I agree. He's not gonna. When the day of the Lord does happen, it's going to be at the very end. It's called the second coming. That is when the day of the Lord begins, not before. All right. During the great tribulation, those 42 months when the beast is on the throne doing all his stuff, that is not the day of the Lord. It's the lead up to the day of the Lord, but it's not the day of the Lord yet. This is when it's, Satan's get to do his thing. And then when Israel, the leadership in Jerusalem, says, we welcome you in the name of the Lord, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, that is when Jesus gets on his horse and then he comes back. That's when he's going to fight. And that begins the day of the Lord.
As you said, Romans 11 says their belief, the natural branch's belief, is the resurrection of the dead. And all the fullness of the Gentiles comes in. All Israel is saved. I mean, this is not complicated. And the reason I put up JS's question, can't all those things happen in one day? They could. My understanding right now, because when it talks about the day of the Lord, there's some really, really bad things going on at the beginning of that day. And then you see perfection during that day. You see bliss. You see really good things happening. So I believe that day is the seventh day, the Shabbat day, the rest we're striving to enter into, that 1,000-year-long day with 2 Peter 3:8, a day being just as 1,000 years, 1,000 years being as a day. But yes, the beginning of that day, Doug, as you know, is not going to be pretty. That's right. When the haughtiness stops, the pride stops. It's judgment day.
Yeah.
There's no more time. At that time, you've missed the boat. I'm not saying that you can't be of the nations, because if you're of the nations and you've not taken the mark, you've not worshipped the image of the beast, but you've not placed your faith in Yeshua, there's obviously there must be those of the nations that are in their human form. And that is how, I hear that all the time with the pre-trib people, because all they're doing is parroting and regurgitating the nonsense they've been taught. Well, he's going to populate the earth like the nations. It says right there. I mean, there's going to be people, apparently young kids. There could be, people who do not take the mark that somehow survive. Some of these individuals could be those sheep that make it into the kingdom in the mortal body.
Yep.
That they protect Doug and I. They take us in.
Right.
They hide us from the Nazis. Very similar. Right. And again, if Yah wants to protect his people through this time period, they will be protected. If he chooses not to protect you, off with your head. So.
Yeah. I mean, look at this text again, Matthew 25, right? So it's interesting because a lot of times people think, well, there's only the saved and unsaved. I think there's another group. And I think
these are all the pagans. He's going to gather the pagans.
Yeah. These are the righteous Gentiles, if you will.
Yeah.
He says, come you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. I was hungry. You gave me food, et cetera, et cetera.
They don't know Jesus.
Lord, when did we see you hungry?
They don't know him.
They don't know him, right? They're like, wait, I mean, we know who you are now, but, I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point, but we didn't know you before, and you're saying that we did good things for you, and we're not even aware of this, okay? Because if it were me, I'd be like, oh, did you notice that, Lord? Good, thank you. I'm glad that you saw that.
No, right? But these would be Muslims that didn't take the mark, that never placed their faith in Yeshua. These would be Hindus. These would be Taoists, atheists, spiritists. I mean, this could be anybody that's not in covenant, because again, it does say of the nations, Doug. And once you understand that, you notice how the translations, they'll put nations instead of Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, it's I'm not saying it's intentional, but it's definitely,
it's subconscious.
It's theological bias. It's just like in 1 Corinthians, when all the modern passages in the letter to the Corinthians, it says, and you were pagans. No, it says you were ethnos. You were of the nations.
Right.
You were a Gentile.
Right.
So the Corinthians are former Gentiles. That messed up church was no longer ethnos, no longer of the nations.
Oh,
nobody's ever going to mistake that church for being Jewish.
Well, and that even leads to another topic, because we think of the word pagan as somebody who is absolute reprobate.
Just out of covenant.
A pagan just means that you're not
part of Israel.
You're not a God-fearer. You're not a Israel God-fearer. You're just someone who just an average.
You can be a devout, nice, humble, sweet, not chopping heads off Muslim who treats their neighbor good and it shows hospitality to Christians and Jews and everybody else. Again, you're still a pagan. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're evil or that you're worshiping Satan or anything. But again, that term, heathen, pagan, and again, the Catholic Church would call them heathens or pagans. It was anybody not in the Catholic Church was a pagan. It's
definitely pejorative now.
Once you were baptized, it didn't matter what you did. You were then not a pagan anymore. You could still do your own thing. It was like just like the house of Israel back in the day. We'll do our things and we'll believe in God. And then, they're getting eaten by the bears and the lions. Oh my. And they're like, okay, we're going to send some people up there to teach you at least some of Yah's ways, so y'all quit getting eaten by bears and lions. And so they worship Yah, but they mixed in the ways of the nations of Babylon. They did this syncretic mixture of truth with paganism. I mean, it's it's not complicated. When you understand this, the Bible makes so much sense. When you understand your Israel, then all these theological, you can still have your little quibble differences, but you go, oh yeah, Israel and Judah are gathered back at the end. Right. Easy stuff.
and that is the big story that has been missing. And I think because we as a whole group, we've missed this for the last 1800 years or so. we have all these different doctrines and different opinions, and we're fighting each other because we're so convinced that it has to be like, how to interpret these different things. But once you see that you're part of Israel, like, oh, okay. I get it.
And JS, to your point, I do believe there is a point in time when Yeshua's feet, they land on the Mount of Olives. That will happen in a literal space time, literal day. It'll split open. The living water will start to flow out of Jerusalem. I believe current Jerusalem is just hosed. But all the topography is going to change. It looks like it's raised up, and everything changes, and obviously the Dead Sea changes. You have living water flowing out of it, and all of a sudden it becomes fresh water. So, except the marshes. Haven't figured that out yet. I mean, you get the fish. You get the fish in this living water. There's fish in it. So
you can hardly wait, right?
That'll be fun. If I'm allowed to fish, I'll go catch some fish in this new living water river.
Yep. So the third angel, he pours out his bowl into the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. And I heard the angel in charge of the waters say, "Just are you, O Holy One, who is and who was, for you brought these judgments, for they have shed the blood of the saints and prophets, and you've given them blood to drink. It is what they deserve." And I heard the altars saying, "Yes, Lord God the Almighty, true and just are your judgments." Oh my. Whew, there is a lot going on there. So, wow. This is where you go back to Abel, right? When he is killed, his blood goes into the ground, and then God says that he can actually hear his blood crying out from the ground. I mean, it's pretty wild.
And same thing with when Yeshua is rebuking Judah. I sent you the prophets. You've killed them.
Yeah.
You're the one. Israel's always been stubborn. Israel, and it's not just Judah. It was the northern house too. I mean, because the northern king was telling Amos, "Hey, Amos, would you please hush with all this stuff you're telling me? Go on down to Judah and talk to them. We want to do things our way up here."
Yeah. This is maybe something that really strengthens your perspective, Scott, that the bowls are happening in conjunction with the return of Christ. I think it's very plausible.
I believe they really. I believe this type of judgment is this is it. It's Judgment Day. It's the day of Yah. It's that. I believe Yom Teruah starts the seventh day.
Yeah,
it's weird in Hebrew thought how everything's circular. I know I'm not saying that Abib Nisan is not the first of the months. But Halisa Elwine, if anybody's ever interested, she makes a great case from a Hebraic understanding of how the seventh month can also be considered the first of the year. And she looks to Yom Kippurim because, again, that's when the Jubilee year is proclaimed on the 10th day of the. So, again, I don't claim in my Greek understanding to fully comprehend this, but I do believe that starts the seventh day.
I think it's actually quite simple because we have many calendars in our calendar. We have the school calendar, right? Tell me, when does the new year start? Well, September, of course, right? That's when kids go back to school, right? No, it's January, of course. That's when we have, the new year. Oh, no, it's actually tax season is in April 15th. So that's when the new year starts. I mean, I don't know. We have all these different new years. So I think there's lots of different ways to look at it. I used to get all bent out of shape about it. I mean, oh my gosh, why are we doing Rosh Hashanah when it's actually Feast of Trumpets? I'm like, it's okay. We got lots of New Year's. But this here in Isaiah 26, it says, "For behold, the Lord is coming out from his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity, and the earth will disclose the blood shed on it, and it will no more cover its slain." I think this is really interesting. And I pair this with Revelation 16, where it says that now everything has been turned to blood, and they're saying this is righteous and just because mankind has shed blood on the earth. So Isaiah 26:21 is saying that the earth is no longer going to disclose, or or it will disclose it. So it's no longer going to close the blood shed on it. In other words, all the blood that has been saturated into the earth over millennia is now going to come back. It's now going to ooze out of the earth. It's pretty nasty, isn't it? But that's the picture that we get is the earth is like, okay, it's kind of like a sponge saying, okay, I'm not going to soak up water anymore, and the water just starts coming out of that sponge. That's what the earth is going to do. It's going to say, yep, no thanks. And I would if I had to kind of think of the mechanistic thing, if this is now the Lord coming back and the earth is now starting to have its healing process, and Isaiah gives us this glimpse, okay? It's a glimpse. We can't prove anything really beyond the shadow of a doubt, but it says the dead shall live, their bodies shall rise, those who dwell in the dust awake and sing for joy, for your dew is the dew of light, and the earth will give birth to the dead. Come, my people, enter your chambers and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourselves, as it were, for a while until the fury has passed by. So you have the resurrection, you have some kind of a hiding away, call it the rapture if you want, but this is all happening at the return of Christ. And we are told specifically that the Lord, that is the Lord Jesus, is coming out of his place. Why? To punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. And this is when the blood of the earth says, okay, the earth says, okay, I'm not going to hold on to this blood anymore. Here you go. I'm giving this stuff back. Right. And then we got to pair this now with Romans chapter 8. It gets so cool when you start putting it all together. Right. So in Romans 8, it says, the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. So when are we revealed? When we get our new bodies. We're just told that, come, you who dwell in the dust, you're going to be resurrected. So that's when that happens. And then the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected in hope, that the creation itself would be set free from its bondage of corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. So the earth, this is the whole creation, has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. So when we get our new bodies, we just read that in Isaiah chapter 26, right? Your dead shall live. So that's the redemption of the body. When the redemption of the body happens, that is when the redemption of the earth happens. And so now it makes sense that the earth is saying, okay, good, I'm done. I don't have to hold on to this nasty blood anymore. Here you go. Take this blood away. I don't need it anymore. I'm not going to hold it for you. Thank you. Because I'm no longer corrupted. I'm no longer under that bondage of corruption. This is the earth speaking, right? Because now the resurrection has happened. So I think you're right, Scott. I think that this is probably all happening in conjunction. These are snapshots. These are camera angles, if you will, of the second coming. These bowls that are being poured out, these are the day of the Lord in earnest, obviously. And this is what's happening because now the leadership in Jerusalem has said, we welcome you in the name of the Lord, and Jesus is on his way. Now, again, it doesn't all just happen like that. It happens over time. In this case, it could be a day, could be a week, could be
10 days.
10 days. Yeah, exactly. Right.
15 days.
Yes.
And I'm basing those numbers off of when the appointed times are.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So between the day of trumpets and Day of Trumpets and Yom Kippur is
10 days.
10 days. Thank you. 10 days. And then we have another 5 days after that till we get to Sukkot. Okay. So there's 10 days between trumpets and Yom Kippur. That very likely is going to be, it's going to be the days of all. That's for sure. Oh my God.
That's where I lean. And it's also going to be for those perhaps that have not taken the mark and worship the image. Yeah. It's that, and this could be for Judah. This could be how Judah even enters into the kingdom but not in glorified bodies,
Mm-hmm.
because they look to the sign of the Son of the Man. They see the sign. You will
Yep.
see the sign of the Son of Man. They look to him who they pierced, and they mourn. And so
Yeah.
again, I believe that this could be happening on Yom Teruah, and that they're saved. He saves them. All the nations are being gathered, Doug. This is for the great battle. And he saves them. And then these judgments starts to pour out. And we see, I believe that this is when Armageddon happens. This is
Yeah.
when,
Yeah.
I always forget it. I believe this is when Ezekiel 39 occurs. Because Israel will not be dwelling in safety at this time. In other words, Israel, at that point in time, all the nations will be coming against, the land. And again, we could have had a second Exodus and been gathered in our staging areas, because it talks about in Zechariah that Lebanon and Gilead will have so many that the land will not be contained them. So again, it's like a big old giant. How in the heck's that happening? When you understand that you're Israel, and there's a prophecy saying that there's so many of his people in Lebanon, north of Israel, and in Gilead, across the Jordan River.
Yeah.
And you've got that place of safety from Daniel. You've got those three ancient nations, Moab, Ammon, and Edom, who he can't touch for whatever reason.
Yeah.
What's going on there? I mean,
yeah.
Everybody get your passports and visas to Jordan.
Well, so let's now compare Revelation 16 with Zechariah 14. Behold, the day is coming for the Lord when the spoil will take in and you'll be delivered in their midst. I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle. This is the battle of Armageddon. The city will be taken, etc. The Lord will go out and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle. And his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives that lies before Jerusalem.
On that day, his feet.
Yeah, right. Now, so here's the thing. When it's talking about those putrefying sores, it could be that they're getting those because they are going to be exposed to God himself, right? And see, this is, I mean, when I was with Calvary Chapel, God bless them, and I saw someone in the chat, they said that let's see, this is what, Connie? Yes. Yeah. Hey, Connie. I met you at Calvary Chapel in Rancho Santa Margarita, California, and I also bought a book on the millennium. Awesome. Well, that's really cool. So, yeah, I used to be with Calvary Chapel, and I used to, I heard this so many times, right? What Pastor Chuck Smith would suggest that this could be a neutron bomb or something. God bless the man. I mean, he was a great teacher, but I disagree. Okay. And what I would suggest that what's happening right here in this text is they're now exposed to the Lord. And this shall be the plague with which the Lord will strike all the peoples that wage war against Jerusalem. Their flesh will rot while they are still standing on their feet, and their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths. This is like Indiana Jones, where the guy's face melts off.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Or
the Witch of the West. The Witch in the Wizard of Oz. I'm melting.
Yeah, I think they're going to melt because look, where's Jesus? He just stepped down on the Mount of Olives. It's split in two, and then it says in here, this perplexed me for the longest time. I'm like, wait a second, it doesn't make any sense until I was able to put everything together, and it was pretty cool. It says his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. It's going to split in two. And you, speaking to the remnant in Jerusalem, shall flee through the valley of my mountains. That term there is the word gay, which means valley. It's a very narrow canyon, not a wide open, beautiful valley where you raise food and stuff. This is a gorge, more like a gorge. Kind of think of that. For the valley of the mountains shall reach to Azal, and you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. Okay, so he touches down on the Mount of Olives, and these people flee through. And I'm like, wait, if Jesus has come back, why are they fleeing? Well, because this is the Exodus. Talk about the Exodus. This is Exodus 2.0. Okay. And this is where they're now between a rock and a hard place. They're at the base of they're in the Kidron Valley. They're waiting for the Lord to come back. He comes, but you have the Antichrist and his forces coming from either side, coming from the north and the south, going to try to snuff these people out. And so then when this mountain opens up, it says the people are going to flee through it. They're going to flee through this newly created canyon or gorge. And of course, just like what happened with Pharaoh, what did Pharaoh do when the Red Sea opened up? Did he say, well, there goes that, I'm not going to go into there? He's like, oh, great. I'm going to go between these walls of water. What's the worst that could happen, right? And it was a trap, right? God set a trap, and then he sprung the trap. And this is the same trap, just a couple thousand years later, same trap. The mountain's going to open up. The Jerusalemites are the bait. That's the really sad part. They are the bait, and they're going to run through. And then after them comes the forces of Antichrist, and Jesus is still on top of the mountain, mind you. He's going to jump down, and he is going to interpose himself between his people to his back and Antichrist and forces in front of him. And this is where, again, let's just go back to the text really quick.
Hold on real quick. JS had a good point about, Isaiah 11. In that day, there shall be a root of Jesse. Yeah, that's Yeshua, who shall stand as a banner to the people. For the nations shall seek him in his resting place. It shall come to pass in that day that Yah shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left from Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, from Hamath and the islands of the sea, a banner for the nations. Assemble the outcast of Israel. Gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. We see that in Matthew 24 when the angels were gathered. And also the envy of, this is awesome. The envy of Ephraim shall depart. The adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah. There'll be no jealousy there. And Judah will not harass Ephraim, and think that, oh, we're the only chosen people. I mean, Judah brings a lot of it on itself when it says, for those that within certain sects of Judaism or Messianic Jews, especially, Doug, they're just Christian Zionists. And when they say only the Jews are the chosen people, and Israel can do no wrong, and if we don't bless them, then we're going to get cursed. Like, no, I'm talking about the nation state, by the way. No, they bring a lot of this on themselves. Because even the Orthodox Jews, I just sent to my friend who is a not Messianic rabbi, and he was like, well, don't you think that the current nation state represents all the tribes and Judah's now both? I'm like, no and hell no. I don't, no. And I showed him 35 texts from the Mishnah, the Talmud, Maimonides, the Ramban, all these rabbis who all understand that the house of Israel is 100% distinct from the house of Judah. I mean, a lot of Jews understand this, but your stinking dispensationalists and Christian Zionists and Messianic Jews don't. It's rather frustrating. But that's where some of this envy and jealousy comes from. This rising true anti-Jewishness, anti-Jew hate towards Jews. A lot of it is coming because of legitimate fleshly, in other words, it's not a spiritual issue. It is a spiritual issue, but what I'm saying is it's the flesh causing them to hate on Judah, because Judah was and is and always will be part of the chosen people. But what happens, it's natural for people to go, wait a minute, you're more chosen than me just because who your mama is? So we're going to see all that dissipate on this day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's a really important point. It's all going to go away, and each house has its role to play.
Yeah.
And
both of them poor witnesses. Christianity's been a poor witness to the testimony of Yeshua, and Judaism has been a poor witness to the Torah, because they both have added and taken away a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So in this part of the story, this is where Jesus is going to come. He's going to save specifically those who are in Jerusalem. Obviously, he has a whole plan for all of his people, but this is focusing in on Judah and Jerusalem at this point. And notice when he is now interposing himself, it says, and on that day a great panic from the Lord shall fall on them, so that each will seize the hand of another, and the hand of the one will be raised against the hand of the other. This is also in Ezekiel chapter 38 as well. So I would suggest that's just another parallel passage to Ezekiel, or to Revelation 16. I mean, when you start comparing it all, it's just overwhelming how many texts are talking about this. And this gives us a really big clue that this is kind of a big deal in God's book. I mean, some days I wonder, like, it just seems like it causes us to fight all the time, Lord. But he's like, I put it in there for a reason.
Again, if there wasn't this envy and vexing and jealousy, Doug, prophecy would not be true. If Judah corporately believed, and they weren't being arrogant, some of them, I don't like to lump all because it's Judaisms, but some sects that like the Hasidics, they're racist, okay?
Sure.
I mean,
yeah.
And they're they're very elitist, and you can list, and those are the ones that the true anti-Jew haters, the true Jew haters, they will find those clips of those rabbis who are teaching what they're teaching. But then your average person listening, your average Roman Catholic like Candace Owens, who knows nothing about theology, or even Tucker Carlson or anybody like that doesn't actually, they're not educated, they're ignorant. They then apply that to all of Judah. They apply that to the Orthodox rabbis that don't teach that crap. So again, I just see what's happening right now as sort of a prerequisite to it only getting worse for Judah and for the nation state of Israel. I mean, all nations are going to come against Jerusalem and against Judah.
Yep.
And Yah's going to save the tents of Judah first, per Zechariah 12 through 14. So
right.
it's for this prophecy to be fulfilled, and I say it all the time, all you that just hate Jews, if I have no doubt there are some in the land of Israel that are 100%, they ain't got a Jewish lick of blood in their body, and they certainly aren't a spiritual Jew, and they certainly, are part of the synagogue of the adversary, okay? But it doesn't apply to everybody. And so that's what frustrates me with the Hebrew uprooters, Doug, that get so anti-Judah, not anti-Judaism, they're just anti-Jew. They don't like Jews. They're all the synagogue of Satan. And, every one of them's an evil person. Now, should they place their faith in Yeshua? Yes. But if they did, what would prophecy be true? If every Jew around the world right now, or 90% of them, say, you know what, I believe in Yeshua.
Yeah.
Prophecy's not true then.
Right.
It's not going to happen until the end. Individuals will continue, and I believe more and more of Judah, the natural branches, are getting reattached to the olive tree. Yeah. Just like more and more of the wild olive branches are starting to understand what the olive tree is. And again, not only the timing that we've almost been 2 days, but just this outpouring and people having ears to hear and eyes to see this. And they're returning to the way, the truth, which leads to life. So I don't think it's because you, Doug Krieger, Ed Doss, Michael Root. I don't believe it's because anybody's smarter than Christians were in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s. I just believe it's that time. It's removing the veil for those.
Yep.
And my friend Camille Green said something recently. I believe he's removing the veil for everybody. Some people don't want to take off the veil of religion. They don't want to. They'll take a peek. We're like, oh man, if I go down this path, people are going to think I'm crazy. I mean, they're going to call me Jewish. They're gonna say, that I've fallen from grace. Some people care about what others think about them. Most people do.
Well, because there's consequences to what people
there
think
are.
Yeah. And I've experienced some of those myself. But it's all part of the journey here. So so all right.
see. Want to
I
go through
wanted to
some
go
questions because
to,
I can't stick around too long tonight.
okay.
I've got a hearing tomorrow, and I've been working on a brief all day, and I've still got another 2-3 hours to work on that brief and read a deposition transcript and get up early in the morning probably to finish preparing for a trial because that's just how I roll.
I got you.
So
Yeah.
go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, we can certainly stop there because there is so much to talk about in this chapter. I mean, this is where we actually hit Armageddon. It's coming, and I've really taken a different perspective on a lot of my end time stuff. Just kind of the Bible in general. I see it as God's love story, and I think this is the final chapter in God's love story. And rather than God just kind of losing his temper and finally throwing it out on the world, he's coming to intervene to establish his kingdom because his kingdom is awesome. And he's inviting everyone to come into it. Some are going to continue to refuse until the very end, which is, of course, very unfortunate. But, just keep that in mind.
When I put this, one of the last questions we had started isn't the image of the beast the image they have for Yeshua? Yeshua isn't the Pope or Emperor's son that did all that lawlessness, and I am not disagreeing with the SDA that every Pope has been the vicar antichrist. He's you read the Catholic writings and they don't like people to understand this, but if you actually get into Veith and some of the SDAs that study some of the writings of the Catholic Church, I mean, he has set himself up as a god on this earth. Roman Catholicism did change the appointed times, officially and legally. People have been murdered throughout the years for rejecting Roman Catholicism. It's you either converted or you died. You were burned at the stake or you were tortured to death. So again, Rome has not changed. She's not changed any of her doctrines or anything of that nature. So I believe that the system, not every Roman Catholic, okay, there's probably that. I personally know a Roman Catholic that if he's not in covenant and born again, I don't know who is. Okay. I mean, he actually came to New Moon Festival the other night and they still go to the Roman Catholic Church. And I'm just going, what's going on here? But again, he's just one of the most loving people. He's a former priest that got defrocked because he got married. And so they gave him the left boot of fellowship from the Roman Catholic Church because priests can't be married. So now he understands everybody's a priest. So pretty cool.
That's definitely a new and good way to see it,
Mm-hmm.
So, oh my goodness. Well, I know we're wrapping up here. I just want to let people know that I've been working overtime. I've been writing a ton, taking some notes out of my just the things that I've been writing over the years and finally formalizing those into books. Here's one that I have just finished. It's coming out in April. It's a tough topic, no doubt about it. Okay. But Set Free, what the Bible really says about divorce and remarriage. And I take a very, well, how should I put it? I try to take a very biblical perspective. And for some people, this is going to be like, oh my gosh, thank you. Some people are convinced that they're going straight to hell because they got divorced or they can never, ever serve again. So I'm certainly not trying to encourage people to go that direction. But I also want you to know that a lot of the stuff that Jesus taught was taken out of context, twisted, and then contorted,
Or they totally ignore the different Greek words, Doug.
Yeah.
If you marry a put away wife who's still a legal, lawful wife under biblical law and under Alabama law, then that is adultery, period, in a discussion. But there's different Greek words used.
Yes. Yeah.
And they mean totally different things, just like there's two different Hebrew words used. The word for actual certificate writ of divorce is only used 4 times in the Hebrew scriptures. God hates put away. And what was happening back then is because you had to pay a dowry. And if you just put your wife away, you got to keep the money. You got to you got to trade. You didn't even trade her in. You just kicked one out the door and put her away. I'm not going to give you a writ of divorce. You're still going
Yeah.
to be married to me, but you're not allowed to go marry anybody else. Meanwhile, I'm
Exactly.
going to be a bigamist. I'm going to take a wife, and I'm not going to
Mhm.
give your daddy any money back.
That's right. You
And
got it.
God
Follow the money.
hated that.
Right. You nailed it. You nailed it, Scott. That is exactly the case. But unfortunately, much of the church, pastors, et cetera, don't teach that. And there's a sense that, well, it's not permitted unless somebody, just radically cheats.
Well,
But
and again,
yeah,
if you held that false teaching to the strict standard, a husband could beat the snot out of his wife,
yep,
and she has no grounds to
yeah,
ever
yeah,
seek to get away from him. He's like,
yeah,
or you could be married to the biggest shrew ever. I mean, women can be abusive too,
sure,
physically and
yeah,
mentally and
yeah,
spiritually and emotionally, and yet
yeah,
you've got to stay in this. Now, again, different people have different circumstances. I believe it's Yeshua was right. Yeah, what God joined together, let no man separate. That's always His perfect will for every marriage, and certainly not advocating divorce. But I would never tell a lady to stay in covenant with a man who's abusing her,
yeah,
or he's molesting their children. I mean, that's not.
yeah. There's actually 4 biblical grounds. So I talk about that. Exodus 21:10 is something that people never talk about. So
Yeah,
I
cool.
hope it brings peace to a lot of people. So guys, check out the link. I put it in the chat, and you can get it. It's super cheap right now for a pre-sale. So check that out.
So it's like, yeah, Rome tried to kill off a lot of the Sabbath worshippers back in the 6th century, but they didn't get all of them, and then we're just rising up again. So almost as if it's predicted. So all right, man, it was good hanging
All
out with
right.
you. Next week, I guess we'll finish up Revelation 16. So all
Yeah, that's the plan. That is the plan.
right.
So lots more to cover there. So all right. Good night, everyone. God bless you.